All right, Chair Johnson, we've got 9 members. For all of our members here in the boardroom, please remember to put on your headsets and to mute and unmute yourselves. Chair Johnson, do you want to go over the housekeeping, or would you like me to?
You can go over the rules. I'm having a little trouble hearing, so go ahead.
I apologize. I know the seat I'm sitting at isn't very easy. For the control room here, or for the controls here for meeting housekeeping, at the bottom of your screen is our toolbar with the mute and unmute feature, as well as the start video for our committee members that are in the room today. We have, if you pull up the participants list, you'll be able to see everybody who is available here in the boardroom, as well as our attendees list for those in the attendees. If you have any questions or you want to raise your hand to make a motion, what we will do is we will use the raise hand feature. There is a button at the bottom of your screen. At the bottom of the participants list, you select the participants list in the bottom right hand corner. It has a raised hand feature, raised hand icon. And that is how we will raise our hands for the chair to note who is first and second to make motions, and those that have any questions, she is able to see who's in order of first, second, third, etc. I think that's all I've got. So I believe we're ready to start. Nope. Your mic is up here, Shara.
All right, are we ready to call the meeting to order?
This is Charlene. Can you hear me? Hi, I just wanted to point out for anyone that's in the room, if you don't see the toolbar at the very bottom, just take your mouse and then push it right down to the bottom of the screen. And then all the features, including the mute and the participants, will appear. So if you're not already seeing it, if the screen is just simply black, it's there. It's just not open until you just scroll your mouse down to that section at the bottom. And just as a courtesy reminder, the facilities are closed on this floor. You have to go upstairs 1 floor or downstairs 1 floor. And I will now be quiet. Thank you.
All right, with that being said, I guess it is time to call our regular meeting of May 17th of our Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board to start. Call to order. We'll begin with the roll call. Charlene, could you do the roll call, please?
This is Charlene. I think the easiest way is for people to just announce their names in full. That will be helpful to the minutes taker as well. If I'm in this room, we will start first. If you don't mind starting from the back row for us, Owen, that would be great. And we'll just work our way around.
That's good. Thank you.
Owen Walker.
Avery Reynolds.
Lisa Van Voors.
Sue Gallagher. Maria Elisa Amador.
Is that everyone that's in the room?
I'm here.
Who's I'm here?
Danielle Miguel.
Okay. Do we need to go with the people at home now?
Yes, please.
All right, I'll start at home. Sandy Johnson. Is there anyone else at home? If you are, unmute yourself, please, and state your name.
I'm at home and my name is Danielle Miguel, board member.
Is there anyone else at home? All right, that sounds like it's everyone. Do Do we have a quorum, Charlene?
Yes, and we have one additional that is here as well. You can
Okay,
unmute yourself if you would like to.
Hi, it's Melanie. I'm here.
and I'm Sandy Johnson. I'm here, if I didn't already say that. Uh, I'm trying to get my screen so that I can see everyone's picture at once, and somehow I'm not seeing that. But I'll stumble through here. All right, so we'll move on with we did recognize that we had a quorum. So we'll move on now with the approval of our minutes from our January 25th, 2021 meeting. So if we need to, everyone I assume has read them. So if we can have a motion to accept them in a second, please. Just raise your hand, your virtual hand. I am not getting the screen up here.
We have the motion by Melanie McGill and seconded by Danielle McGill.
Oh, all right, I've got it now. Okay, yes, the motion by Danielle McGill and second by Melanie McGill. If I will assume everyone is in favor. If you are not in favor, then please raise your hand. Otherwise, we will assume that it passes unanimously. Not seeing any hands raised, we say that it passed unanimously. The next section is public comments from the floor. Do we have any public comments, Rebecca?
No, Chair.
No comments. All right, so we'll move past that. Moving on to the action items. The first item is the motion to approve the 2019-2020 Transportation Disadvantaged Service Plan. At the end, we will have a roll call required, and I'm going to turn this over to Paul Strobus, who will deliver this report to us. That's
Fortunately.
I
Paul, we
can't
don't
hear you yet, Paul. Still can't hear you.
Nope.
How about now?
That's
now
better.
we can hear
All
you.
Now we can
right.
hear you.
All right. Sorry about that. Yes, so the Transportation Disadvantage Rate Model is an annual exercise that CTCs must do each year based on the appropriated trust fund amount that is distributed to each county to develop a reimbursement rate for services rendered in the upcoming grant year. We generally estimate what the cost of service is going to be to deliver the transportation disadvantage services in our region, how many trips we think we'll be able to do, and that formula spits out a rate that we then apply for our trip and equipment grant. A note for the board, last year with the pandemic, we're not producing as many trips. So this year, we're very conservative in our estimates of trips that we anticipate to provide. So the rates are a little higher per trip than we've had in the past. And that way there we can try to ensure that we don't leave any money on the table from the trip and equipment grant. And I'll go through it later on in my report to show you why we did that. But if there's any questions by the board, I'll be happy to answer them.
Hey, Paul, it's Sue. Good to see you.
Hey, Sue.
So I'm curious how you're going to do your projections for this year and your estimates of, what you think people will do in returning to taking trips. Just curious what your assumptions are.
So, obviously we've continued to provide paratransit service throughout the pandemic. And, you know, we dropped as low as 20% of service back in March and April of 2020. Service has recovered to about 60% so far. And so, you know, as we move forward to this new grant cycle that begins July 1st, you know, we can kind of see a minimal growth each month, or, you know, 1% growth. So we've kind of extrapolated that out over the next 12 months to come up with a fair estimate. And then, like I said, we kind of backed off a little bit conservative just to make sure that we don't overestimate our service, and then we don't have enough units to draw down the grant. So.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Strobus? All right, then we can move on to a vote, and we will need a roll call vote. Charlene, can you do that?
Okay, the roll call vote, Mr. Strobus, I believe, will be for the TDSP.
What was I?
I apologize. I was walking around the room helping folks. I just want to
Yeah,
make sure
it's
the
for the
purpose for the roll call vote is specific to the TDSP.
Right.
Oh, my apologies, Chair Johnson. I was talking about the rate model. I didn't have the agenda up on the screen, so I apologize. I completely gave a report on the wrong item.
I'm so glad when someone else makes a mistake besides me. So correct yourself.
All right. So the Transportation Disadvantage Service Plan, every 5 years, we redo a plan. In between those years, we do a minor update where we submit.
Excuse me, Paul, just 1 second. Could we just go on? Would it hurt anything to go on? And you were giving us a number 5 on the agenda report. Maybe we could go ahead and vote on that since you already gave us the report, and then go back to number 1. Could we do that, Charlene? Or is that going to be too confusing?
I don't think that's a problem. You can pull the item and change the order.
Yeah, let's do that because he gave the report and Sue asked her question, and also we know what he just told us. So let's go ahead and have a motion to approve the community transportation coordinator rate model. And we don't need a roll call for that. We just need a first and a second motion and a second.
This is Sue, so moved.
Okay, I have, I show Melanie McGill. Sue, you need to do your virtual hand, but I guess I'll put you down. Melanie McGill made the motion and Sue seconded it. Sue Gallagher seconded it. Or if you don't agree, raise your hand. If not, if you agree, just don't do anything. All right, we're good. It passed unanimously. All right, now we'll skip back up to number 1, Paul, and now go ahead.
Right. So again, I apologize for that. So again, the service plan is basically a summary of the accomplishments of the CTC on an annual basis. As I mentioned, every 5 years, we do a major update. In between those years, we do minor updates where we update stats and any fixes that need to be done in the report. We've provided a red line copy for the board members to see what was changed from last year's report. But again, it's generally a summary of services that we've produced last grant cycle year, which is the state fiscal year.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Paul on this? If there are, raise your virtual hand. All right, seeing no hands raised, I guess we can take a roll call vote on this, please. And then Charlene, if you do that.
Very good. I think we'll follow the same methodology we did for the welcome. Just have folks go around the room and state your name and then approve if you approve. I will start with you again, Owen, if you would be so kind.
Lisa Van Voorhis, approve. Melanie McGill, approve.
Sue Gallagher, approve.
Miloy Sina, approve.
Kira Sherritt, approve.
Charlotte Mather Taylor, approved.
Bob Sedorki, approve.
Judy Graver, approve.
Maria Lisa Amador, approve.
Alexis Harrison, approved.
Sandy Johnson approved. And is there anyone else at home that needs to approve?
Danielle McGill approved.
Thank you. All right, it looks like it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the motion to approve the LCB bylaws. And Melanie McGill and her group met in April, and they reviewed them and there were no major changes. So if anybody has a question for Melanie, now's the time to ask. So please raise your hand if you have any questions for her or and her committee on the bylaws. Seeing no hands raised, I'll have a motion, please, and a second to pass the LCB bylaws. Judy Graver made a motion. I need a second. And Robert it just jumped around. Hillary Senate had a second. Is there anyone that objects? Raise your hand. Seeing no hands raised, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next is a motion to approve the LCB complaint and grievance procedures. And again, this was Melanie and her team that met in April, and there were no major changes. So does anybody have a question on these for Melanie or her committee? Seeing no questions. Again, I'll take a motion to approve in a second. Robert makes a motion and Judy Graver has a second. Is there anyone that objects? Raise your hand. All right, seeing no objections, motion passes unanimously. All right, next, motion to approve the Community Transportation Coordinator CTC Performance Evaluation. And Melanie, that's the first part of this. So Melanie will report on the first part here. On the performance evaluation.
Okay, got it. So we met again on the same day that we met to go over the bylaws and the complaint and grievance procedures. We went through the entire workbook, asked Paul any questions that we had, but there were no major changes to this, just more or less grammatical changes. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Right, and there's the second part of this with the Broward County Transit BCT to continue in its role as the CTC for Broward County. And again, that was Melanie and her group. So I don't believe there were any major changes there either.
But I think we have to vote on them individually.
Right. Oh, we have to?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So let's go back to A and we'll vote on A, the CTC's performance evaluation. Any questions? Raise your hands. If not, can we have a motion in a second? Robert makes a motion and Sue Gallagher seconds it. Is there anyone opposed? Raise your hand if you are. See no hands raised, motion passes unanimously. And then the second part of the BCT to continue in its role as the CTC for Broward County. We need a motion and a second for that. Please. Robert, I lost it. Robert made the motion to pass and then Vera did the second. Those little hands are jumping around on my screen. So, is there anyone who has any objections to that? Please raise your hand. See no hands raised, that passes unanimously too. All right, on to the next page. And this is a motion to recommend the Broward MPO approve LCB membership appointments, the Florida Department of Education, Vocational Rehabilitation, Public Education. And Charlene, I think you have the info on this.
Yeah, we have new appointments and then we have an alternate change. I know our folks at VR, they simply had a staff change. And so that is who's joining us remotely. That is Alexis. So
Yes.
are you on right now?
Yes,
Alexis?
I am. I'm here.
Yes, she's there.
Great, great. And then the other one, we have vacancies that we're filling for public education. And those folks will come on and join us at our next board meeting. And I apologize, I do not have the documents in front of me, but they are in the attachments with the agenda. But while I have you, Chair Johnson, I do have a question. I just
Sure.
wanted to make sure, since I was working the room, if we had an approval for the agenda.
Yes, you did.
Okay, very good. Great. Thank you.
Yes. Going all the way back there. I hope we did. I think we did. Somebody,
We're
best-
good.
yeah, just Rebecca double check that to make sure, because.
She's given me the nod.
Okay.
We're good.
And she's our gal, so. All right, so are there any questions for Charlene on the motion to recommend the MPO? See no questions. Can we have a motion in a second? Melanie McGill made a motion and Danielle McGill seconded. Thank you. All right, moving on to our non-action items, the paratransit update and transportation disadvantage grant tracking report. And this is Mr. Strobus again.
Thank
Our
you.
transit manager.
So the report has been submitted, I believe it was attached to the agenda for everybody to see. As I mentioned earlier in one of the other items, you'll see that in the tracking report, ridership is much lower than what our expectations were last year going into the grant cycle. The result of this has been our ability to draw down all of the grant funds that were awarded in this grant year. So we've been averaging about $123,000 underdrawn each month through the first 9 months of the grant cycle. We don't expect that to really change over the last 3 months of the grant. And so, one of the things that I tried to do was to petition the Commission for Transportation Disadvantage to give us that money back in next year's grant versus us losing it. That request was turned down by the CTD. They explained that they didn't have the authority by the legislature to do that. So the money's going to go back into the trust fund and be distributed to CTCs in future years through the normal allocation process. So again, with the rate model and the application for this upcoming trip and equipment grant, we were very conservative in the number of trips that we expect to do. We only estimated 80,000 trips for next year. And as you can see through April, we've already done 74,000. So by being that very conservative, we're going to be able to draw down more money per trip and make sure that we don't leave any of that money going on the table. The reason why is obviously my operating expenses to perform the TD service. I've spent the money, but the counties had to cover that because the reimbursement of the trip and equipment grant is specific to those number of units. So in the past, we've always been able to lean on bus passes for low income individuals as a secondary drawdown mechanism. But because Broward County suspended fare collection in April of 2020, we've not had any TD bus passes throughout the grant year either. So if there's any questions on the tracking report, I'd be happy to answer those. If not, I'll move on to just some of the stuff we've had since the last meeting.
Are there any questions? Okay, Danielle McGill.
I only have one question for Paul, and this is about customer rides. So because of all this, how is this going to impact the customer in the long run as far as funding goes and the rate and cost of their trip?
Sure, it doesn't affect the passenger's experience at all. For me, it's just the difference of what pot of money is funding the service. When I request my operating budget through the county's budget process, we tell them we need $30 million to do all the trips. And then it's up to us, the budget department takes whatever revenue stream is going to fund it. And some of it comes out of the county's general fund, some of it comes out of
tax And the penny tax?
The
Is that
penny
gonna
tax,
help?
yes, the penny tax is also there for any deficit that general fund and TD revenue can't meet. The surtax is there to cover whatever gap occurs. So there'll be no impact on service or the number of trips that we do. We've always had a commitment by our board to fully fund whatever the demand is, but
Okay,
you just got to kind of forecast it in advance. So
got it. Thanks, Paul, for that explanation. I appreciate
anytime.
it.
And thank you, Paul. And Sue Gallagher, you have a question also?
Yeah, I'm just curious, does the CARES Act supplement any of the losses that you guys have experienced?
It can, yes. Especially for the revenue lost through suspending fares.
Mhm.
So we're able to, and we've received substantial amounts of CARE Act funds
Mhm.
that will help offset that as well. So again, I'm not really worried specifically for paratransit of any sort of shortfall, but I hate to leave free money on the table. And so we just want to make sure that in this coming year, we manipulate our grant application sufficiently to make sure that we can get every single penny that's coming to Broward County. Because as I've brought up to the board in January, and I will expand upon that in a little while, they're doing everything in their power to take money away from us. So we don't want to give them that opportunity. So
Thank you.
All right, thank you. That seems to be all the questions. So thank you very much for the report.
but and just
Yeah.
so I can, that was just for the tracking report. I just want to give the board an update of some of the things also going on. Using some of the surtax money, we've just placed an order for 17 brand new vehicles using 5310 grant funds. Tomorrow's Broward County Board meeting has a consent item for an additional 49 vehicles that will be funded with the surtax revenue. All of those vehicles are retiring older vehicles in our fleet, and we should have them here late summer, early fall. Each of those vehicles will be converted to run on propane after they get here. Since our last meeting in January, TOPS program has also been very proactive in helping individuals, seniors, disabled get to vaccine sites. Broward County, working with the Department of Health, created special arrangements for paratransit customers where we reached out to them and created a transportation program where our buses normally couldn't get in the queue with all the other vehicles at some of these vaccine sites. We were able to get designated vaccine sites set up so that paratransit customers could be picked up by TOPS, brought to get their shots, stay on the vehicle. They actually got their shot on the vehicle, and then bring them directly back home again. So, we began with the 65 and over age group when the governor had set that limit. We had a little over 3,000 TOPS customers contacted. Many of them had already started getting shots on their own, but we were able to provide a little over 300 people trips to and from a vaccine site to get their 2 shots 3 weeks apart. We also reached out to all of our special needs registry. As the board knows, I provide evacuation services for those on our special needs registry during hurricane season. We wanted to make sure that they were included in their opportunity to get their shots. So we were able to contact about 700 people on the registry and offer that to about 50 people took us up on that out of that group. Once the 18 and over age group was available, again, about 3,400 people were contacted that were active TOPS customers. A little over 200 people took us up on the transportation to these sites. So we were able to provide those that had no other way to get their vaccines shots and didn't have to worry about even rescheduling 3 weeks later. We told them when we booked their first trip, we'll call you and bring you 3 weeks later to get your second shot. So, the county, I thought, did a really good job there in making sure that our most vulnerable population was taken care of if they wanted to get their vaccines.
Great teamwork, Paul. Great teamwork on that.
Thank you.
Excellent.
In January, the Broward County Board of County Commissioners approved our Riders Choice pilot program to become a permanent option for on-demand services for our customers. So as a complement to their ADA or TD paratransit, they can use same-day service with this program through the subsidy. They get 2 trips a day, up to $18. Right now, it's available through most of the cab companies that accept our payment card. It's not publicly known yet, but Uber has approached us about possibly joining that program in the near future. They're working through some logistical issues, but that might be able to be offered going forward. March 29th, we participated in the Florida Public Transportation Association and the CTD Virtual Legislative Day. The APTA chair, the Secretary of Transportation for Florida, spoke about this coming year's funding forecasts and how COVID may be impacting certain revenues. I think with some of the bills that have been released, the CARE Act funds, there's somewhat of a positive outlook that transportation and infrastructure will be well funded and not, we don't expect any need for any sort of draconian service cuts that have been recommended in other parts of the country here in Florida. I think we're well positioned for to continue to meet the need of our people here in Florida. April 29th and May 7th, the CTD held 2 public workshops to discuss an issue that I brought up in January for the board, and it's a policy on the utilization of TD services in counties that have robust ADA paratransit systems. This was a workshop to kind of lay out the CTD's position and to garner public input from the public on before they bring an item to the next CTD business meeting on June 3rd. I'll tell you again, I'm very concerned that the CTD staff have a predetermined decision already made. I think the workshops, in my opinion, were just to go through the process. They can say they held it, they took public comment, but I don't think it really was going to change anything. You know, we've gotten the FTA to publicly and in writing, which is very odd for the FTA to put anything in writing, that ADA service is a civil right and it is not a sponsored service. It's a federal mandate for equal access to public transit, and it, in their opinion, would not fall under sponsored transportation that the CTD seems to think it is. And so Broward County specifically, I can't speak for every county in the state, but because almost 80% of our county falls within an ADA service area because of our robust fixed route system here, their position would be that everybody should get ADA and TD should only be for those that don't live within those bubbles. I think it's ignorant of the staff to assume that everybody is ADA eligible, first of all, and that it also creates a very dangerous policy where other counties could defund their public transit to help increase their TD funding opportunities. So I think it hurts large urban counties and supports more small rural. So, you know, again, the CTD is going to make a report to the board on June 3rd. A policy could be voted on at that meeting, which could affect us moving forward, where it may restrict how we can spend our TD dollars here in the county. And if that happens, we may have to make changes to our business model, and it could possibly also create gaps in service moving forward here in Broward County. So I'll keep the board updated the best I can as that moves forward. I know Charlene also sat in on the public workshop with me and listened. The Florida Public Transportation Association's executive director was very forthright and critical of the direction the CTD staff is taking. Unfortunately, not a lot of the other large CTC properties around the state spoke up. Maybe they're doing so privately. Maybe they're doing things through their governmental affairs or their lobbyists at the legislative level. I'm not sure. But it was just Broward County and the FPTA that spoke up at the last workshop. So, I've started discussions internally on what our possible outcome, what could do is if they were to restrict us, what we might want to do moving forward, either legally or legislatively. But until they make the policy change, I don't know what to do. So I'll keep you posted the best I can. And that ends my report, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Paul? Danielle? Miguel?
Paul, can the board write a letter in response to all these changes and the new policy that may occur? Would that help, or?
Well, the
you think
executive
it's a waste of
director,
time?
the executive director had set a Friday, May 14th deadline for any public comment to be included in their report at the June 3rd meeting. The only other option would be to register as a public speaker at the meeting, and you'd be given 5 minutes to speak on the topic if it's on the agenda. But again, like I said, in my personal opinion, no matter how many public comments they get, they've already made up their mind on how they want to move forward.
Would it help to have at least maybe 2 representatives from our LCB board to speak
I don't
during
think
that meeting?
I don't think it'll hurt, Danielle. There's a member of Miami-Dade on the board, and
I know that.
she, her county is the one that was hurt the worst. Miami-Dade lost over $6 million in TD funding a couple of years ago, and they've briefed her, and yet the votes seem to be in line with the direction of the CTD staff. So, again, I encourage anybody on the LCB, if you want to speak, by all means, I will accept any support. But I don't know if it'll change anything, to be honest with you.
All right, thank you.
It's worth a try.
Right. All right, I don't see any other questions, so I think that Mr. Strobus has shared all his good knowledge with us. Thank you very much. Are there any other member comments about anything? Danielle, is your hand up again, or did it just not come down? No answer. Charlene, no? Okay, I don't see any member comments there, so that's good. The last 3 things, the LCB operating reports and the planning related grant agreement tasks and our attendance roster. I assume that you've read, so we won't need to discuss that unless anybody has something they'd like to say about it. And Charlene, you have something you'd like to say, so please share.
I just wanted to follow up with what Mr. Strobus has said, which is I will, when information comes in from the CTD on this ADA issue, I will forward that information out to the board. So if there is anyone on the board that would like to make comments, that opportunity will be provided to them. I'll share that. And then I know I'm not a member, but I would like to make a comment if I could so be indulged.
Absolutely. You're
Okay.
our fearless leader.
Wonderful. One of our members who has a founding member of the LCB is being honored. And actually, if our good friend Miss Charlotte Mather Taylor would be so kind as to mention it, I would gratefully appreciate that.
Yes,
we have the Senior Hall of Fame luncheon, which will occur this Thursday. And there was a select committee that was led by Mayor Geller that actually reviewed over 43 applicants. And actually, I was not part of the panel, but it is my organization that is holding the event. And I'm excited to say that the panel picked Vera Sherritt as one of our honorees, and she's very well deserving of it. And it was an amazing process because there were a lot of qualified candidates, and it was a very hard for them to select. But Vera is so outstanding with her dedication over the years. I mean, she worked for Department of Health before and was just boots on the ground helping people way back then, even with transportation. And she has just over the years dedicated herself to helping the most vulnerable individuals. So, I just have to say, I'm very excited that we're able to highlight her and all the great work that she's been doing over the years. And, she had her whole career working to help people. And then in her retirement, she's continued to help people. Even little things, you wouldn't think about the amazing things she does with her church groups and baking for people. She's still here on the committee. And she's just one of those dedicated, service-oriented people. And we're just really blessed to have her. So if anyone would like to participate, please let me know. And watching her will be online. For those who are interested, we will deliver a lunch to you as well, if you would like to do that. But if you don't want the lunch and you want to see her online and clap for her, and please just shoot me an email. Because again, she's very deserving of it. And it's funny, I've known Vera over the years, but when I read the nomination on her, I was even more impressed with all the things she'd been doing. So again, Vera, I'm so glad you brought that up, Charlene. I was remiss in not doing that. So thank you again for that. So.
All right, thank you. I was going to actually mention that myself because I saw Vera's name when I signed up for the luncheon, and I was so excited to see it. So I was going to congratulate her also and thank her at the end.
Yes.
All right, seeing no more hands, our next meeting is September 20th. And I just wanted to tell you all, thank you for bearing with me because this is the first time I've done a remote leading of a meeting. And I saw Millery, is she still there? She'll appreciate this a little bit because I'm doing this meeting from my granddaughter's dorm room at the University of Florida in Gainesville. So I'm totally out of my element. So anyway, go Gators. And
yes, like the Gators.
Thank you very much. And could we have a motion to adjourn in a second?
Sandy, this is Charlene again, and I do apologize since I was moving about the room. I just wanted to make sure we did public comments.
We did.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So Melanie McGill has a motion to adjourn and Robert has seconded. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all again very much and see you in September.
Yeah.